guys, it's Nancy here and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about how I caught my ex cheating. Yes, cheating. Anyway, let's just get into the story. Before I get into this video, please just go ahead and make sure you subscribe. Hey besties. All right, so let's just go ahead right to it. So a little backstory. This relationship was like in my college days, so this is not anybody recent. But I feel like out of all the men that I've dated, this relationship was the most significant to me because I feel like we had the closest bond. So like I said, this was somebody that I met while I was in college and we were together for 3 years. So that's like a little general summary. He was the only man to ever meet my parents. He met my family, my siblings. Yeah, he was somebody that I thought we were gonna get married. I'm just gonna fast forward to the last year of our relationship because that was the year that I found out he was cheating on me. So yeah, he was like, Nancy, like, I want us to go to Missouri because, my sister is, getting her white coat to start medical school and I would love for you to come. And I was like, okay, cool. And y'all, we drove there. Like, we didn't even fly. We drove there because he was like, Nancy, we can drive. Like, I'll drive, if you don't want to drive because I don't like driving. Like, especially for a long period, extended period, I don't like driving. Like, I feel like anything over 2 hours, that's just too much for me. I'll be in the passenger seat, but he drove most of the way, which was cool. We talked, we laughed, we slept, listened to music. We would do our little rap, freestyling, like whatever. We just, we was just vibe. We were like literally best friends. And, so we get to Missouri and we get to this like Airbnb. It was an Airbnb because I know it was not a hotel. It was not a hotel. We get to an Airbnb, we get into the room, and we're just like unwinding, like talking or whatever. And his mom was at the Airbnb and his brother, his brother, and his other sister. They were at the Airbnb before we got there. It was a house. And so I get in, they all know me. So I'm like, hey girl, hey. I'm not gonna say names, but I was like, hey. And I was just like all greeting each other, like giving hugs, like, hey, or whatever. And so that was that. And we just chatted and we chilled and we talked and we watched movies or whatever till like it was time to go to sleep. So him and I had a room together. And before I get to the next part, I just wanted to say, like, the way our relationship was, we kind of knew everything about each other. Like, we had each other's like passwords to our phones. He had never betrayed my trust in any way up until this moment. And mind you, this is year 3 of the relationship. So I'm like, nothing really, to worry about. And I never really had any suspicion, believe it or not. I never had any suspicion that he was cheating on me. I do remember in the beginning, like, his ex-girlfriend had the same middle name as me, which is like, okay. So I knew it was her. Anyways, let me just go back to the story. So we're like, we like shower, we get ready for bed. And I just remember I was laying in the bed and my intuition, call it a woman's intuition, call it what you want. My intuition said, Nancy, look at this man's phone. And I don't like problems. Like, I was not even looking for any problem, but my intuition just told me. And I'm not even the type of person to go through people's phones because I don't see the need for it. Like, I don't go through my phone. I won't go through your phone. Like, we just live our lives, But something told me, mind you, this was back then, now I probably would have just ignored it, the gut. But something just told me, Nancy, get up and look in that man's phone. It wasn't even like how he was behaving or anything. It was just something that my intuition told me to do. So obviously I know his password to his phone. He knows my password and I did it. I opened his phone and it was the most recent message was from her. And I just remember what it said too. How can you just go on a trip with her when you were just with me, making love to me last night? Something along those lines, And when I tell you, in that moment, I have never felt that level of pain and betrayal And it almost felt like, and I always explained it to my friends when I found out, like, it almost felt like a knife. Like somebody literally took a knife and they stabbed you in your heart. That's what it felt like. Oh my God, it was just, I was an emotional wreck. Like, first of all, after that moment, I started shaking, because this is the man that I trusted, like, so deeply, like literally so deeply. I wanted to marry this man. We talked about building a life together, having children. I told you he met my parents. Like, he told them that's what his plan was. Like, it was just so much that we had invested in each other, and we always said we were always going to be there for each other. And for this person to do that to me, when I have been nothing but good to you, did it shape the way I look at relationships? Absolutely. It definitely did something to me where I was like, oh my gosh, people can really do this type of hurt. And yeah, so I was just shaking, and I started crying. Did he wake up in that moment? No, he didn't. But I did move to the other side of the bed, and I didn't even put the phone down right away. I literally kept scrolling, and there was literally so much history of messages, to the point it was so ongoing that I just had to stop, because I was getting sick, and I was like, oh my God, this man has been living a lie. And I remember one day, because we both had the keys to each other's apartment, but I had the key to his apartment, and I decided to surprise him one day. And I literally went up in there, and I literally scrubbed the apartment down. I cleaned it from up to bottom, top to bottom. I said up to bottom. I cleaned that apartment from top to bottom, spick and span. And when I cleaned it, I left a note, because he was at work, and I left a really thoughtful note. And she mentioned the note. She mentioned the note in the messages, and that made me cry, because I'm like, you had this lady in the house that I cleaned. But anyway, so after a while, I just stopped scrolling up, because I'm like, this is crazy. It was continuous messages. So I cried myself to sleep that night. I cried myself to sleep. It was very painful. Never experienced anything like that in my life. Never been cheated on. That was, what they say, it's a first for everything, I guess. It was very painful. And then so the next day, we woke up to get ready for the ceremony. And I was trying so hard to pull it together. Like, I didn't know anything. Like, I didn't go through his phone. Like, I didn't suspect anything. I was trying so hard. But I would look at him, because he would look at me, and I would look in disgust. Like, I didn't want this man touching me. I didn't want this man sitting too close to me. I was so disgusted. So, we got dressed, showered, cleaned up, got ready, whatever. And we head over to the ceremony. And everybody's there. Everybody's family's there. Watch their child get their white coat, become a doctor. We're all here to celebrate her, which is great, because his sister, I love her, And as much as I tried to keep it together in that moment, this is before she walked across the stage to get her coat. But I was there, like, everybody was clapping and cheering. And I don't know, that kept replaying the text messages that I saw in the phone that night before in my head. And I kept telling myself, he was just looking at me like nothing was going on. And in that moment, when I kept replaying it over and over in my head, I cried. Like, mind you, we're in a full stadium, we're in an auditorium, not stadium, auditorium full of maybe thousands of people. And I started crying. I literally started crying. And I'm like, oh my God, Nancy, you're supposed to keep it together. You're supposed to keep it together. And I think he tried to put his arm around me or something like that. And I started crying. And I went like that, And in that moment, he was like, okay, something's up. Because I never do that. I never did that. And so he was like, what's going on? I said, I saw the messages. I saw the messages. I know that you are still, and I said her name. And so in that moment, he knew that I knew. Yes. And he didn't, one thing about it is he didn't even deny it. Like, some men will be like, no, that was somebody, be telling you long story up and down when you've seen the messages. But he was just like, Nancy, you can't do this right here. This is my sister's white coat ceremony. You can't do this right here. So, then he said, that's what I did. That's what I did. And we can talk about it later. And I just remember in that moment, I got up and I walked to the restroom because I was really crying, like pretty hard. His mom didn't look back. They were sitting in front of me. So it was him and I were sitting behind his mom and his sister and his brother. They didn't really look back. They were just looking forward because that's when, their sister, their daughter was or whatever. So he was like, we could talk about this later. When he said that, I was like, I'll be right back. And I just walked to the restroom. And I didn't want to miss her getting her white coat because she didn't do anything to me. It was him. And I just was in the restroom. And I said, Nancy, this pain, this level of hurt that you feel right now, I don't think it's going to go away. And you know what they say, when you have a relationship and you don't have trust, you don't have a relationship. You have to, go ahead and end that. So I was thinking about all these different things while I was there. So I was like, Nancy, just regroup, center, touch up your makeup, and go back out there. So I did. And I kept my distance from him. Like, we were still sitting together because I didn't want anybody else in his family to know what was going on. So I was just like playing it cool. And I watched his sister cross the stage, get her coat, everything. We took pictures and everything, and then it was time to go back to the house. It was time to go back to the house to have the conversation. And I was curious to see what he was going to say, because I just wanted to know. But he never pulled the why did you go through my phone card. He never pulled that. He just would say, Nancy, I think his main defense was like, I'm a man, Nancy, and all men cheat. All men cheat, Nancy. This. Everybody knows it already. That's what he kept saying to me. That was his main defense. It wasn't even, why'd you go through my phone? Oh, that's not who you think it is. Oh, that messages are from years ago. It was none of that. It was just, all men cheat, right? You know that, right? Okay. So what you do is you accept it and you just stay in the situation, whether it's, whatever it is, you just stay in it. And you just accept the fact that all men cheat. And so in that moment, I just knew it was over. There was no way I was going to be complicit and stay in a situation with a man that told me that I had to be okay with him cheating on me. So like that was not going to be a thing. So I already knew in the back of my mind, but I was going to wait until we got back to Houston because I didn't want to do it. I didn't want it to be weird. So I was just like, let me just wait until we get back to Houston so that I can break this off with this man because he's out of his mind if he thinks I'm just going to be with a man that's just openly out here cheating on me. That makes me a fool. It makes me somebody who doesn't value themselves. That's not me. Maybe another woman would do that and sign up for that. Not me. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait back till we get to Houston and then I'm just gonna, end this relationship because that's the best thing to do. So, we get back to Houston and, it wasn't even like it right away. It was like some days had passed by. I wasn't really talking to him and he would reach out to me and I would not answer the call. I was like, yeah. So after we got back from Missouri, I went back to my apartment. He went back to his place. We didn't live together. Thank God. Another reason why you don't live with a man you're not married to. But yeah, so I went back to my place and he went back to his place. And that was that. We didn't really talk or communicate, not as much as we used to, because obviously the relationship was strained and I was trying to end it. So I was like, man, I gotta find a way to just meet up with him and let him know that I no longer want to continue this relationship. which is what I did. So I went to his house, and his friends were there, and I said, hey, you know, can we talk to your room? And so we went into his room, and I said, this has been an amazing relationship. You taught me so much about myself. I've learned, I've evolved, and I really did think you and I were going to get married. But I do know that for a fact, even though now my relationship with God is a lot stronger, but I do know that God does things for a reason. I would never willingly marry a man who has cheated on me prior to us even being engaged. Like, that's not something that I can do. I don't have, you know, no, I'm not built for that. So, and I just kind of told him, like, you know, you and I, we can be friends and we can be associates and we can kind of, you know, check in from time to time or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's just, I want to go my way and you go your way, and you know, that be that. And I think in like, I don't think it really registered in him, like in his mind. Like, I don't think he took it serious. Like, I told my friends, like, I don't think it registered, because he would still call me, he would still text me, hey baby, da, da, da. I'm like, what? We're not together anymore. I've told you that I want to go my way and you can go your way, and you know, that be that. And do it in a very polite way, but it didn't register for him. And I just remember, like, one time, because this is a popular spot that a lot of people go to in Houston, and I remember I was there with my cousin, and both my cousins, and he was there with his friends. He just so happened to be there because, like I said, it's a popular spot. A lot of people go there. And we were sitting at the table, and all of a sudden, these drinks come to the table, and they're like, oh, it's from this guy. And they point over to the guy, and guess who it is? My ex. And I'm like, what? He doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. This is when I used to drink. I don't drink anymore. But yeah, he sent over drinks, and then I walked over to him, and I'm like, what are you doing? Mind you, it's like loud music blasting everywhere. And I couldn't even hear everything he said, but he said, Nancy, I want to marry you. Like, because he literally had a drink in his hand, and he was like, here, what do you want, Nancy? Whatever you want, I'll get it for you. I want to marry you. And I was like, I didn't say it out loud. I was in my head. I was like, this guy can't be serious. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go back over there. You don't have to send over stuff to our table. And he was like, okay. He looked like he was a little bit tipsy too as well. Yeah, his words were kind of slurring. Yeah. But yeah, I just remember he was like, I just want to marry you, Nancy. I want us to have a family. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, are you about to cry? Like, are you, like, I'm thinking, like, are you okay? You know, but then, so I just walked away. And I went to the table, and that was basically it. Like, I just was kind of like, I'm here, I'm out here, whatever. And that was that night. And then later that night, he called me. He was like, what are you doing? Where are you at? I'm like, I didn't even respond, honestly. So then I don't think it really registered in his mind that I was no longer his girlfriend, because it was one day he got very angry. It was at a different spot. It was like another popular spot. But this man, like, came up to me and was like, you know, trying to like dance with me and whatever. I was dancing too. Like, I'm like, look, like, I'm just, you know, having a good time or whatever. And it wasn't even anything like I was trying to be with a man. I was just, first of all, I wasn't trying to be with anybody at that moment. I was still, you know, healing from that situation. And so he saw that. He got very angry. And I think in that moment, though, it registered in his brain that him and I are no longer together. So, because I would never do anything like that if I was with him. So that was basically it. I think even after that point, it took some months for me to actually stop crying, because I would still miss him and I would still think about him, but I had to be strong, because I feel like at the end of the day, your love for you has to be stronger than what you allow people to do to you. Even if you love them, there has to be levels of what you will allow and what you will not allow. Loving yourself enough to walk away from anything that you know is beneath what you deserve. Because if you walk around like you're a queen, and you know that you are a queen, and you carry that confidence, and you carry the knowledge and wisdom and grace, then you will meet a king, a man who will value you, honor you, respect you, love you. And yeah, so that is how I found out my ex was cheating on me. I went through his phone. I do not suggest you going through anybody's phone. Please do not say you watch this video and now you're gonna go through your man's phone. Like, please don't. I'm just saying that was my story. I do not recommend going through people's phones. Like, that was back then. I would not do that now. But that's how I found out he was cheating on me. But that's about it, y'all. And again, I don't have any resentment. Honestly, like literally 2 months ago, I hosted this karaoke night, and like I invited him and his friends, and they came. I invited my other friends, and I'm like, oh hey, because they haven't seen him in forever. I haven't really invited him out anywhere in forever, but I was like, let me just invite him out, because that's just to let him know, like, I'm not bitter or anything. One thing I've learned through in life is you don't hold grudges to people. You have to know how to forgive, because if you don't forgive, then I don't think you have the capacity to love. So that's what I would say. So you just have to learn how to forgive people, and you know what I'm saying, like do that or whatever. So but yeah, like that was like 2 months ago. Like I invited him and my friends, like all of us. We were just out. We had a karaoke night, and we had a really, really good time. And he was like, thank you, Nancy, for inviting me. I had a really good time. I was like, yeah, no problem. But we haven't spoken since. But like I said, I don't need to speak to him all the time. Like, but that's it. There's no animosity. There's no hatred, or I don't even carry that in my heart. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.